We're adopting AI, whether you like it or not. Help them understand the vision of the future. This isn't going to take your job. This is to strengthen your skills. This is to help you, to assist you. But saying that you don't want to use it does not work.
Welcome to Sidecar Sync, your weekly dose of innovation. If you're looking for the latest news, insights, and developments in the association world, especially those driven by artificial intelligence, you're in the right place. We cut through the noise to bring you the most relevant updates with a keen focus on how AI and other emerging technologies are shaping the future. No fluff, just facts and informed discussions. I'm Amit Nagarajan, Chairman of Blue Cypress, and I'm your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Sidecar Sync podcast. My name is Mallory Mejiasis, and I'm one of your co-hosts along with Amit Nagarajan. And today we have a special interview edition of the Sidecar Sync podcast for you with John Spence. If that name sounds familiar, it might be because you saw John Spence's keynote at our Digital Now 2024 conference last year. We're so excited to have John Spence on the podcast today. You will see he's so energetic and engaging and approachable. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. For those of you who are not familiar with John, at 26, he was the CEO of an international Rockefeller Foundation overseeing projects in 20 countries. 2 years later, Inc. magazine named him one of America's up-and-coming young business leaders. John has been recognized as one of the top 100 business thought leaders in America, one of the top 100 small business influencers in America, one of the top 50 small business experts in America, and one of the top 500 leadership development experts in the world. The American Management Association named John one of America's top 50 leaders to watch, along with Sergey Brin and Larry Page of Google and Jeff Bezos of Amazon. John is a voracious learner and consumes a minimum of 100 business books a year. He has been a guest lecturer at more than 90 colleges and universities, including MIT, Stanford, Cornell, and the Wharton School of Business, where he has been a lead instructor at the Securities Industry Institute for more than 20 years. Whether addressing an audience of 20,000 business professionals, facilitating a training workshop, or coaching an executive, John readily establishes a strong connection through his honest, open, and approachable style. So in this conversation today, John and I are going to chat about the three quotients. So that's IQ, EQ, and AQ. You might be familiar with the first two, but we do spend some time diving deep into the third one. AQ is what John calls the adaptability quotient, or how fast a person can adapt or learn, unlearn, and relearn something. So the question here is, which of those is most important for leaders, IQ, EQ, or AQ? Well, you will have to keep listening to find out what John thinks. We, of course, discuss artificial intelligence and how important it is for associations to lean into their wisdom in a world where knowledge is available to any and everyone in just a few clicks. At the end of John's bio, he has a really great line that says he has made a career of making the complex awesomely simple. And you're going to hear him do exactly that in this podcast. So please enjoy the interview. John, thank you so much for joining us on the Sidecar Sync podcast today. Our Sidecar audience is familiar with you if they attended Digital Now 2024, where you gave a fantastic keynote. It was actually the last keynote of the whole conference. It was a great one, I will say. Can you share a little bit about yourself with our listeners who may not be familiar with you?
After being a massive failure the first try through college, I graduated I redid it and graduated number 4 in the country, and was hired by the Rockefellers and took over one of their foundations when I was 26 with offices in 20 countries around the world. Did that for a few years. And then I went independent as a sort of a leadership trainer, executive coach, keynote speaker, and been doing that for over 3 decades. I read more than 100 business books a year to try to keep up with my trade. And that's a very short from college to global thought leader guy.
Man, that was a really easy journey for you, I guess. It was so fast.
Oh, yeah, that was a breeze.
So
the college I got kicked out of had a building named after my father. So
wow.
you gotta really mess up, get kicked out of a college where there's a building named after your family.
Talk about pressure. John, how did you get connected with Amit? I actually don't know this story myself.
Through the Entrepreneurs Organization.
Okay.
He saw me give a speech many years ago, and then he invited me in to do some work with the CEOs of the different companies in your portfolio. And then he and I have seen each other at events for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were so happy to bring you to our Digital Now audience last year. And in that keynote, you talked about three topics, we'll call them, three concepts. So you talked about IQ, EQ, and AQ. And I'm hoping you can give our listeners kind of an overview of that topic.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'd talk about some non-negotiables of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Honesty, character, courage, vulnerability, great communicator. Those are, being honest as a leader, to be an effective leader, is never going to go away. But those three quotients, if you will, are what I believe you need to be successful as a leader in the future. IQ is not the number, it's competence. Got to be good at what you do. And I'll do the quick one is the average business person for professional development to get better at what they do reads about a half a book a year. Yeah. If you were to read 6 books a year or the equivalent thereof, you'd be on the top 5% in the world for personal development. If you were to read 12 business books a year on, communication skills, conflict resolution, how to be a better leader, a better team member, whatever it is, 12 a year, you're in the top 1 to 3% on the face of the earth. So that first one, IQ, you might not be able to increase the number, but you can definitely increase your competence level, and the bar is very low. EQ is your emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, and there's 5 factors in that, or 6, but the ones that are, I believe, are the most important, where I do a lot of executive coaching where I see leaders stumble, is self-awareness and then self-regulation. Being good at identifying your real emotions. I'm not enraged. I'm upset, confused, offended, anxious. And if you change the name from I'm enraged to I'm confused or I'm offended, that's a different emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then the self-regulation part says, now that I understand my emotion clearly, what is the appropriate response in this situation? EQ is actually 5 to 7 more times important than IQ as you move up in an organization, because you go from doing the work to managing the people that do the work, to managing the people that manage, and eventually you get up there where almost all your work is people work. So you got to be competent, but you have to be able to get along with other people well. Then the last one is AQ, which is your adaptability quotient, and that's your ability to successfully and effectively navigate change. And there's several factors to that, and I'll hit 2, and then I'll let you ask questions. This is a long answer, which I normally shouldn't do on a podcast. My favorite part of AQ is learning agility, and that's the ability to learn lots of new stuff, like I was just saying, but here's the fun part: unlearn things quickly and relearn. So it's learn, unlearn, relearn. And then the other part, the big part to adaptability to me, is resilience, because things happen fast, change happens fast. There will be mistakes, there'll be failure, there will be difficulties. And to be effective and being adaptable and agile, you have to be able to bounce back from setbacks.
Man, this is all so fascinating. I'm used to the long answers, by the way, because of Amit, which I love. It gives me a lot of time to think through exactly what I want to ask next. But okay, you talked about IQ, EQ, and AQ. You said EQ is 5 to 7 times more important as you move up in an organization than IQ. But I'm curious, how do you see AQ as relating to EQ as a leader of an organization?
Super question. Quick answer. It's more important. Yeah, because let's put it this. I'm good at what I do. I get along well with other people, but I can't adapt. I resist change. One of my favorite quotes in the world is, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. So especially with the speed of technology, AI, all that sort of stuff, you've got to be fast, agile, adaptable, quick, nimble. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter how well you get along with other people or how competent you are, you will not succeed in today's super fast-paced business world.
Mm-hmm. And you will cease to be relevant, as you said. So, okay, it goes, as a leader of an organization, it goes AQ, EQ, IQ, though they're all important. So I just want to stress that as well. John, you mentioned this phrase, learning fast, unlearning fast, and relearning, kind of as a concept. In theory, that sounds easy enough. Sure, I learn, I unlearn, I relearn, but how can you expand on how this works in practice? How you've seen this play out in the businesses that you've worked with?
Yeah, it's actually the unlearning part is the hardest. Some of my colleagues use the business as usual mindset. We've always done it around here. What happens is people get really comfortable. They get comfortable using and we'll keep it in I know we're going to get to the AI stuff. They get comfortable using a certain software product.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been using it for 20 years and it's outdated, but I love Excel. And I studied it in college or something else that, and I'll give a leadership one is early in my career, I did not believe in going with your gut. Or intuition. I thought that's
Mm-hmm.
just give me the data. Let's make a logical decision here. And then someone explained to me that intuition is really pattern recognition, that you look back over all your experiences and you tie them together and say, in the past, these sort of things have happened to me. So there's probably a good chance this is going to happen going forward. I built my whole career on pattern recognition. As
Huh.
soon as they put it in that framework, I went, oh, I got to use intuition to go with my gut more often.
Oh, I love that. I'm one of those people too that tends sometimes I don't trust my gut. And I'm with you. You think intuition, what is that? But I like the idea of reframing it as pattern recognition. You've had X experiences in your life, you've reacted this way. Therefore, if you're having a similar experience, maybe you're likely to have that outcome. I think it makes sense. John, how do you recognize when an organization seems to be struggling with adaptability? What are the signs you look for? What are the alarm bells going off for you?
The first one is how well are they handling change? And you probably know this, Mallory, and a lot of your listeners do, that when people are faced with what they perceive as negative change, they go through the same emotional cycle as if someone close to them had died.
Mm,
They have fear at first. They're, destabilized. They don't know what's going on. Then they'll fall into depression and then they go up to anger. Then they go to bargaining. Then they go back to depression. When I see people that are stressed, anxious, worried, truly scared, because it's, for some people, change is easy. For some people, if you change the chair in their office, they freak out. So the first step I see is how resistant is everybody and what's the emotional sort of pulse of the
hmm
organization. Are they excited about change or are they all worried and stressed? The other thing that holds organizations back, and this is part of the 8 steps of a change process by John Kotter, is I see organizations that don't make what I call an irresistible case for change. We're making this change whether you like it or not, period. Because if you leave the door open, they will resist as hard as they can. It's, this too shall pass. This is a flavor of the month thing. But if you let them know, we're adopting AI, whether you like it or not, period. It's, and help them understand the vision of the future. This isn't going to take your job. This is to strengthen your skills. This is to help you, to assist you. But saying that you don't want to use it does not work.
hmm You make an interesting point there on AI about taking a firm stance and kind of making it a non-negotiable. What is your take in terms of the emotional pulse, as you mentioned, in team culture, in, let's say, mandating AI education, saying you must do this is essential for your longevity as a professional in this world, versus I highly encourage you all to learn about AI. Here are some resources, do them on your own time. What do you think about both of those options?
I think a little bit it depends on the business,
hmm
but every organization is going to have to adapt to AI, period. That's the truth, the facts. And now for organizations that can increase efficiency, increase effectiveness, use it for, mining their data, things like that. What I've seen, I've got a couple of CEOs I coach and that I just went to work with an executive team. He said, this is a core strategy of our business now, period. We will use AI and we're going to aggressively do projects. And if you don't like that, you will likely not be comfortable here. And they did actually have people that said, I don't trust this stuff. I don't want to do it. I don't like it. I don't want to work here anymore. And that's rare, but there's, that level of resistance. And unfortunately, it's mostly people my age or in their 50s and older that didn't grow up with technology. And they're still a little freaked out about all the technology, but especially AI and other things like that. And they're the ones that are resisting unlearning and relearning.
Mm-hmm. I think this is particularly relevant for associations because Meath often mentions on the podcast that in their respective industries or professions, associations are often the anointed organization within that industry. They're the long-standing organization that's been here for, maybe 100 years or so. So how do you recommend that associations balance preserving tradition, which has worked for them up until this point, while still embracing necessary change?
Hey, the business I just talked about that said this is a strategy is an association.
All right.
Yeah. It's actually someone that attended digital now
Oh,
and
wow.
said, we have to adopt this. Period. I mean, he was just serious.
Mhm.
And the one thing and I ran a large, not an association, but a large not-for-profit Rockefeller Foundation at some level. And here's the thing that I've always taken with me, and this CEO of an association said is, don't run this like an association. Run it like a world-class business. Don't compare yourself to other associations. Compare yourself to Apple and Google and Amazon, because those are the expectations of your members. If your member can go click and have something delivered to their house in 10 minutes, or they can get an answer in a couple of seconds, or Google or ChatGPT can give them an answer instantaneously, running an association of kind of caught in the old way of doing things. Now, let's say the other part of that is AI and technology will never, ever, ever replace building member relationships. That's where, and I talked about it. There's the idea there's four levels to me of knowledge. There's data that AI can give you, which is just raw numbers, raw information. There is information, which is when it starts to pull it together. It starts to make sense of it. There's knowledge when the AI actually compiles it and gives you answers, but that's as far as it can go. The last step is wisdom. So it's the difference between knowledge work and wisdom work where people add the most value. And in an association, all of the places you can apply AI for creating knowledge work, great, but realize the AI isn't going to create loyalty from a member. It isn't going to have empathy. It won't be able to create a relationship. Those are the things, that level of wisdom work that only the employees can do. So I see it as a tool that will help them and allow them to do the really high leverage work that a computer will never be able to do.
Mm, I love that idea. So leaning into the wisdom work as an association. John, I know you have seen some technological shifts throughout your career.
A little bit.
I'm sure a couple.
The internet didn't exist when I started my career.
All right. So you've seen a good few. I will say you've seen a good few. I think most of the listeners on our podcast are pretty much in agreement. All right, this AI stuff is here to stay. It's going to transform our personal lives, our professional lives. But I'm curious, when this started coming about, so like the generative AI boom several years ago, you, having worked with so many organizations, how did you decipher this is something I really need to focus on and this is going to transform business versus another tech fad that's going to pass? Kind of like, as a leader, how do you keep tabs on the landscape and say, this is something I need to pay attention to, this is something, I'll give it a little more time?
So when it first hit, and the major, let me see, ChatGPT was open to the public on March 14th, 2024. That's the first day you could really go sign up and get. So it's only been around a little bit more than a year. Now, it existed a long time before that. But for, John Spence to get on and start using it, it's only been around about a year and a half.
Okay.
So I thought my career was over.
What? All your wisdom? You thought it was over?
I didn't understand that. I thought, well, all the stuff I've spent years learning, you go to ChatGPT and ask a question, it'll give it to you. And then, so I started playing with it, and I realized that, like strategy work, something that used to take me literally a solid week to do, analysis, I could do in 45 minutes. And I also learned this. I can create an incredible document of ideas around strategy. I mean, just fantastic. But if you haven't done 50 strategy retreats in your life, it's just a list of numbers. I made a huge mistake, and this was another association I was working for in a very, very specific industry. And they asked me to customize my talk to their industry. So I used AI and gathered all kinds of data. Absolutely fantastic. Amazing. Started to build my speech on it, my report. I sent the report to the person I was working with, and she said, "Prove these numbers." I said, "What?" She goes, I've never seen numbers like this for our industry. So show me your citations. And I went on and I couldn't find any. And
Wow.
and here's when I learned I didn't know enough about the industry to know that the data wasn't accurate. That doesn't happen with me in leadership or so one of the things I think is important is you have to have enough wisdom to see if the knowledge and the data is actually verifiable and on track. So when I do stuff now, it'll give me a report on strategy or something like that. 90% of it, I'll go, yes, 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 yes. And then I'll go, oh, I never would have thought of that. So I look at it as a great thinking partner.
Yes.
But I'm still the one that has to go deliver the work. I'm still the one that has to go meet with the client and do the work. So it's revolutionized my job. I cannot imagine doing what I do for a living without AI,
Wow.
but I'm still comfortable that I'm the only one that can, not the only one, but from my standpoint, I'm the one that has to go and create the client relationship and do the
Yes.
work face to face.
Yep. I really appreciate too you sharing that example because I feel like we often want to highlight all the successes that we have with AI, but it's important as well to share, okay, this didn't go so well. I think hallucinations like that have certainly improved, but the same thing has happened to me even recently. I'll use podcast transcripts to create blogs, and even to this day, it will make a fake quote that Amit said, and I'm in the podcast, so I'm like, I don't think Amit said that. Are you sure? And it will say, no, I just made that up. Sorry about that. And, so you have to constantly be aware of these things that can happen. I also like what you said, John, about kind of now you have access to all of this information, this knowledge, this data, but you focusing on what makes John Spence uniquely John Spence and leaning into that. And I think associations have to do the same. Like, what makes the association unique? The only organization that can offer this experience to its members, and lean into that. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And I'll circle around. A lot of the stuff, interacting, doing signing up for events, choosing which event to offer based on the feedback from your members, doing your newsletter, doing your frequently asked questions. I could do a whole bunch of getting a good customer CRM, but would be what an MRM, but really understanding your members at a much deeper level allows you then to uniquely apply that information to create a very unique experience for every single member. And so let's use this, two examples. Netflix. I don't watch a lot of movies, but it knows that I'm not watching romance.
Yeah.
I want a Jason Bourne movie. So when I turn on, it goes recommended for you. The reason is it has an algorithm that has seen every single movie I've ever watched. Amazon, recommended for you. Hell, stuff shows up in my house I don't even think I ordered, but it's exactly what I needed. Actually, well, Amazon did something amazing. Using their algorithms, they build warehouses in certain parts of towns or cities, and they stock it with what they anticipate based on the algorithm the people in that area will buy. That's why sometimes you order something and it's at your house later that afternoon.
Yep.
They had it on the shelves because they knew you were going to buy it before you knew you were going to buy it. And now let's take it. If I get that every day in my life, I'm going to expect that from my association. I'm going to expect that level of responsiveness and personalization and understanding me and building things that are valuable to me uniquely and to all the members. But the expectations are so high now. It's why I don't think you can not use this technology, because it frees your people up to do the really important things that make you unique. That the relationships that people create loyalty. Nobody's loyal to an AI. People are loyal to the people that they know in the organization and how much the association helps them.
Mm-hmm. At Sidecar, we know the power of bringing the brightest, most innovative minds out there together in person to learn and grow. And that's exactly what we do at our annual conference, Digital Now. Digital Now is a 2.5-day conference bringing Silicon Valley and executive-level content to the association space. We bring in expert speakers from places like Google, Amazon, and the U.S. Department of State to share insights on emerging technologies and how they're reshaping the future of associations. Whether you come solo or bring your team to collaborate and implement together, you'll leave with a clear vision for what's next. Join us November 2nd through 5th, 2025 at the Lowe's Hotel in Chicago. To secure your spot, visit digitalnow.sidecar.ai.
You're hearing about AI agents everywhere, chatbots, data analysts, personalization engines. But here's the problem. They all need unified data to work properly. If your association's data is scattered across your AMS, LMS, and other systems, you're not ready for AI. It's that simple. Member Junction is the open-source AI data platform that brings everything together. So when you're ready to deploy those AI agents, your data is ready too. Don't let data silos hold back your AI future. Learn more at memberjunction.com.
If you're listening to this podcast right now, you're already thinking differently about AI than many of your peers. Don't you wish there was a way to showcase your commitment to innovation and learning? The Association AI Professional, or AAIP certification, is exactly that. The AAIP certification is awarded to those who have achieved outstanding theoretical and practical AI knowledge as it pertains to associations. Earning your AAIP certification proves that you're at the forefront of AI in your organization and in the greater association space, giving you a competitive edge in an increasingly AI-driven job market. Join the growing group of professionals who've earned their AAIP certification and secure your professional future by heading to learn.sidecar.ai. So, John, very exciting that you've been working with some associations on AI as part of their core strategy. I'm curious, when an association comes to you and says, all right, we are kind of dropping everything else or maybe putting a pause on some other projects, we're focusing in on artificial intelligence as part of our core strategy. John, where do you recommend that they start? Because that's a really broad statement. What are kind of your line items of we got to make sure these things are in place to take action?
So the first thing is to identify a couple of very small pilot projects, something that costs $500 or $1,000, that if it failed, it wouldn't have any major negative impact. You run a little test over here, and then if it's good, maybe it is on a chatbot on your website to answer frequently asked questions, and you build a database of those for all the ones that have been, and 80% of the time, 90% of the time, it can answer the question. A lot of the for-profit or private organizations I work with have turned almost their entire call center over to AI. And, instead of taking 700 calls a day, 7 go to the staff. The other 693 are handled by. So doing something like that that's small, scoping it out, getting a good idea of what you're trying to achieve, making sure that, are you going to buy something off the shelf? Are you going to have somebody come in and build it for you? And if you're going to have somebody come in and build it, make sure it's not a black box that you don't understand how it works, and don't give them access to too much of your data. And then run a small trial. And if it works, expand it. Then just look for the next place that it's an obvious application. Okay, we can increase the efficiency here. We can, do our member database with renewals. And we can put all the renewals in a database and have it automatically pop up and send out an email letting people know that it's time to renew. And if they do it right now, they get a 10% or 5% off on their membership. No one should touch that again. That should all be done by AI.
What role do you see education playing when you're working with an association and their staff might be unsure when it comes to AI, maybe a tad resistant, maybe the emotional pulse is a bit nervous?
So it's kind of like me a little bit. I see two sides to this. I see the side that you could do amazing education online and have highly customized things for each individual member's organization. One of the associations I recently worked with is in the work truck field. Well, there's a little bit of difference between the people that make refrigerated trucks for grocery stores and people that make dump trucks. And they don't want both the same education. They're not looking at the same regulations. They don't have the same common equipment, on and on and on. Being able to use AI to say, I'm going to send you highly customized training, education, newsletters, specifically that will be perfect for you. So on one side, the online education, training, things like that. Then what I look at is using the answers and the information you get from members to build customized one-to-one, not one-to-many training with instructors or through webinars or things like that. One of the things I'm doing a lot more with now is I'll do major surveys of all the people that are going to be in the audience, of what's important to them, what they want to learn, what are the most important factors. Then I use that to go back and customize my speeches to the real issues of the people sitting in the audience and I've always customized stuff, but this is a whole nother level of being able to really put your finger on the pulse of the member or the audience and give them something that is highly unique and specialized just to them.
I love that. I love the idea of kind of taking the tidbits that you get from your members. Maybe you roll out a chatbot in a pilot project. You start noticing all these questions appear over and over and over again, and maybe you create educational content based on those questions. I think that's a great idea.
And your example was absolutely perfect.
Yep. John, I'm also curious, though, on the education front, what you think about educating staff internally on artificial intelligence. Because if you roll out a pilot project and your staff is kind of not really up to speed with what's going on, it might not be successful.
No, it won't be. A factor in that is upskilling your folks, is helping them understand it, embrace it, not be scared of it, and making sure that they have the tools, the training, the support, the resources they need to be successful. And to constantly be communicating with how you doing, or, we having any speed bumps here? Do we need to give more training? Is there something I can help you with? But upskilling is fundamental to rolling out successful AI programs.
And of course, we believe that here on the podcast, which is why we do it. And we believe that here at Sidecar. In your Digital Now keynote, you said a phrase that I really liked, which was creating a culture of catching people doing things right. And that phrase, you expect to hear catching someone doing something wrong, but catch people doing things right. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the average employee, and I just saw the global report on employee engagement from Gallup, and it showed that only about 21% of employees are highly engaged. And the group that is hit the most, that means 79% roughly are disengaged or actively disengaged. And the group that it hit the most was managers. More than any age, gender, any other thing was managers. And one of the key things they said was, I don't get enough praise. I don't get enough support. There was 3 areas that they identified that managers need help in: training, upskilling. Number 2, coaching skills, asking questions and listening and growing their people. And the third one was well-being. And a huge chunk of the well-being was celebration, telling them they're doing things right, finding a way to support them and help them. And I think I may have just said it. The average employee needs some sort of genuine, specific, honest praise about once every 2 weeks. Okay. And it doesn't have to be a trophy of employee of the month. It could just be, hey, I saw that PowerPoint deck you put together. I love that. And the colors were awesome. Nice job. Or I saw that email you wrote to one of our members and you copied me on it with a difficult situation. You handled that beautifully. Or here's a great email I got from one of our members talking about you. I'm so proud to have you on our team. Something like that will carry people for weeks and keep them engaged in what they're doing.
I love that. I love all the good feeling side of business, but I think it's interesting what you also said about training, upskilling, and then that well-being component as well. So it's not enough just to celebrate people, but providing them with opportunities to advance themselves in their careers is essential.
Yeah, I did a huge research study of 10,000 high potential, more than 10,000 high potential employees at top companies around the world of all sizes and associations were in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked those folks, because these are what I call voluntary employees. If they are not happy, they could quit and get a job at the competition tomorrow. So they don't come back to work at the organization because they have to. They come back because they want to. So I asked them what they wanted, and I think there's 6 or 7 things. We'll go through it because it changed recently, and I'm tying this to the well-being. First one was fair pay, not the most pay, just fair, 10% above or below what they would make to do the same job anyplace else. As long as you get parity on pay, it comes off the table. The next one is meaningful work. And I think a lot of associations can point to what they do, and they're doing super important things. The next one is cool colleagues. A players only want to play with other A players. You put an A player on a C level team, one of 2 things happens. They drop their performance to C level, or they get frustrated and leave. The next one is a great culture, a culture of engagement, a culture of celebration, which has to be balanced with a culture of accountability as well. Next one was personal and professional development. My company is investing in me. They're helping me grow. They're sending me to conferences, classes. They're giving me training and education. And then professional development is, can I see a place for myself in this company 5 years from today? If you hire somebody good and you're not constantly investing in their development and they don't really see a career path, they will leave and go someplace else. The next one, which is like well-being, was flexibility/compassion. And that one wasn't on the list 8 years ago.
Huh.
And it shot up amazingly during COVID. And then the last one is, which is not the last one, it's actually the single most important factor is, I work for a leader I trust, respect, and admire. About 80% of people don't quit their job, they quit their manager or their leader.
Wow. That there's really nothing to say to that. What you said, I feel like resonates so clearly and makes a ton of sense. I think associations do, as you mentioned, excel for sure in some of those areas. I want to focus in a little bit on the culture piece and also circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which was adaptability quotient, or AQ. So if you're a leader and you've had this culture that's always been kind of everybody is in agreement and everybody wants to do this next project, we get kind of consensus with everyone, but they're not adaptable. And you as a leader realize, or maybe they're struggling with AQ, not that they're not adaptable. You as a leader realize, okay, we've got to bump up the AQ as a team. This is essential. How would you recommend doing that in a team where your culture is always having consensus, always being in agreement?
Number one is you have to lead by example, period. And I've said period today like 5 times.
There's a lot of period moments in this one.
Boom, that's
period.
It. We're not talking
stop.
about that anymore.
I like it.
But I've got a phrase, as goes the leadership team, so goes the entire organization. So if your leadership team isn't embracing AI and they're not aligned and they're not growing and upskilling, do not expect anyone else in the organization to do it. Another part of that is making it clear, and you know, what that's a factor of, and this is a huge issue in organizations I'm working with, is lack of psychological safety. People don't speak up. They don't want to talk about uncomfortable or difficult things because they're afraid they'll hurt someone's feelings, or they'll be made fun of, or there'll be retribution. So in order to have a group that is willing to disagree agreeably, and challenge each other. Microsoft has a great phrase when I work with them. People are safe, ideas are not. We will never attack each other, but it is our duty, literally our duty, to try to improve every idea. It might already be as good as it can be, but we could try to make it better. So if your idea doesn't get challenged and pushed around, not you, then the culture is not where it needs to be. So you need to create a culture where it's safe to ask hard questions, to push back, to challenge, projects or things you think aren't going well. And again, the one way that you create that culture is when someone says that, the leader metaphorically has to run over and give them a big hug and say, thank you. Wow, that's a tough question. But boy, I appreciate you asking it. That's going to help us look at this from a completely different perspective. So that praise and celebration of people when they do take risks or challenges or push back creates a culture of what's called radical candor, where people not are only okay with it, but they expect it.
Leading by example is integral. And even though Amit's not here with us, I've got to give him a shout out because I feel like he does an excellent job of that. Particularly when I first started working with him, you'd work on a project that for me seemed all consuming, the most important thing ever that we were working on. It had to succeed. And then at times Amit would say, that's not working. Let's just scrap it. Let's pivot a little bit, focus on this direction. And I remember thinking, wait, what? I thought this was the thing we were working on that we have to put every, blood, sweat, and tear into. And then to see a leader say, it's not working and we can pivot and that's okay. We have permission to do that, I think is very powerful.
Yeah. And I'm going to balance that out with pivoting too much. I've got some that are like, well, let's try this. Shiny red ball, squirrel, shiny red squirrel, boom, boom, boom. My answer is only pivot when the market demands it. When the product you've created, nobody wants to buy. The program you put out for your members, nobody signs up for. I've got one client I coach right now that pivots in the middle of projects before they've had a chance to succeed or fail. She just constantly wants to upgrade the process, change the process. It's killing her team. And I'm trying to help her understand sometimes good enough is good enough, and let them get to the point where it's truly going to fail before you step in, or let them fail sometimes.
Right.
If it's not mission critical and it isn't going to cost a lot of money, how do you have good judgment? By messing stuff up and going, well, that didn't work. I don't think I'll do that again in the future. Experience of failure leads to good judgment.
And if you're never failing, you're playing it too safe, I would dare say.
Exactly.
All right, John, I asked this question on another interview a few months ago, and I kind of like it. So I think I'm going to redo a variation of that with you. And the question is, if you were an AI, which I think you're going to resonate with this, because the idea is if you could look at all the interactions that you've had over your career with organizations and identify patterns, which you mentioned that you love, what would you say is one practice or one trait that you wish leaders could adopt to transform their businesses? Just this one, every time you go into a business, you'd say, man, if you just would do this one thing, it would be better.
Be the one that's studying it the most, so you're the most knowledgeable. Show genuine interest. Do tests. Do work. Come and show people how it's working. I tried this new thing. Like, I build a lot of custom chatbots for my projects. And for the folks that work with me, I'm like, you need to use these things. Yep. They're not resistant, but like, I thought I'd get in trouble if I was doing reports with AI. I'm like, no, you can get them done in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. That's what I want you to use. Look at what I created. That report you saw from me, I didn't do that. That's the AI I built. And now they're realizing, but I'm constantly sending out notes and emails and letters of, hey, did you see this article? Here's how to build a custom chatbot. Here's something I used a custom chatbot to do. And they're seeing me embrace it and engage a lot. So it's making them, feel more comfortable. So if I saw one thing, it would be, hey, leaders need to be the ones that are change champions for this, but doing it again by example, by reading, studying, learning, testing, sharing ideas. I think a culture of knowledge sharing is critical too. I always tell people, if I came in your shop, if you had a true knowledge-based culture, people would be sending each other videos, articles. They'd come back and write a write-up from a conference they went to. They'd have a book club or something like that. If you don't have any of that and the leader's not doing it, don't expect a lot of things to change positively.
Period. Full stop. John, I'm sure all of our listeners are going to want to keep up with you, learn more about you. Where can they follow you? Can you share your website, share all the socials, all the things?
Yeah, I do a lot of content on LinkedIn. write a newsletter, and I write daily stuff. So there's good content there. And then my website is john@johnspence.com. And I always say this, if something we talked about, somebody has a question on it, or they want to know where I got the research or whatever, or my recommended book list or whatever, just shoot me an email. My email is john@johnspence.com. That's really innovative. Wow, creative. But I answer all my own emails, and I'm happy to point people in a direction. If I don't have the answer, I can find somebody who does, like you guys.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And you can all tell John is just a fantastic, intelligent speaker. He's amazing at keynotes. If you saw him at Digital Now 2024, you already know that. So keep him in mind too for your upcoming annual meetings.
I appreciate that.
John, thank you so much for joining us today on the Sidecar Sync podcast. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mallory.
Thanks for tuning in to Sidecar Sync this week. Looking to dive deeper? Download your free copy of our new book, Ascend, Unlocking the Power of AI for Associations at ascendbook.org. It's packed with insights to power your association's journey with AI. And remember, Sidecar is here with more resources from webinars to boot camps to help you stay ahead in the association world. We'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep disrupting.